There are no truer words for this breaking story than to quote the great Yogi Berra. And while maybe the fat lady hasn't quite sung yet, so the game ain't over, she certainly has the dress on. Because in this breaking story, Dandy Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense, and you've heard a lot about it, Pete Hegseth, is officially going to be on the way out when you see this breaking video. The chickens have come home to roost, and it's all over but the crying. And I'm going to show you that in just a few seconds, but oh my goodness, look at this series of stuff from Pete Hegseth, which will explain so much about the breaking story video we're about to show you. Take a look.
I was actually considered to be the VA secretary in 2016 for President Trump. And I came down to the end, and we had some conversations, and I will never forget a phone call. He calls me, and he says, Pete, I wanted to pick you, okay? But...
Are you doing the voice?
Yes. But why do all the vets groups hate you?
So while I was writing the book, I called him back, and I said, can you tell me, sir, what really happened? And long story short, and you can read the whole thing in the book, he said, basically, members of the unit deemed you to be an extremist, a white nationalist, because of a tattoo they saw on your social media. And it's a tattoo I have right here of a Jerusalem cross. I'm a Christian, a believer in Jesus Christ.
In fact, this tattoo right here, Deus Vult, those are the last two words of the book, Deus Vult. So you got to buy it to understand what it means. I've had this on my arm for a couple of years.
Told not to shoot. I know in my own, even in 2005, 2006 ROE, it was incredibly arduous toward the idea of absolutely decimating our military. So as a result, it feels like the wars keep going and keep going, because we're not doing what we did in Japan. We did that then because we had barrel-chested men saying we're going to win this war.
I do less beer these days. I'm a gin guy. Gin is my poison of choice, for sure. Gin and soda, yeah, it's good. But now that I'm getting older, I got to get up early for Fox and Friends. I put this much soda in and this much gin in.
Kyle Rittenhouse, thank you so much for joining Fox.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it, man. It's a privilege to shake your hand.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Be here with you. I'm a trained infantryman in the U.S. Army, and I've led men in combat. And I'll never forget, I was talking to my wife about it, said, the amount of muzzle discipline and trigger discipline that you showed in that moment is something most elite troops could never muster.
So that means that this breaking story video, which is likely to close the coffin on the nomination of Secretary of Defense for Pete Hegseth, doesn't really come as a shock. But nonetheless, here it is.
Keep going. Keep going.
We're good.
You got it. Well, thank you guys for making the trip.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
Cheers to Warriors. Appreciate you.
Cheers. Thank you, sir.
Welcome to a special edition of Modern Warriors. War on Warriors. We are all here at an undisclosed location outside of Nashville, Tennessee, to talk about these concerns over some Tennessee whiskey with real warriors.
You know, Pete's mom just jumped on the news the other day and defended her son after having railed on him in an email years ago. And once again, similar to, let's say, Joe Biden pardoning Hunter to protect him from Trump's, attack squads, starting with Kash Patel, we get a parent's love for their kid. And when their kid's finally in line to perhaps get something really terrific, it makes sense and it's understandable that mom would come forward, put her best face on, and talk about how her son, Pete Hegseth, is no longer that guy, especially now, to quote her. Except for the fact that this video isn't that old. And some of those spots that leopard has are really, really hard to change. And while I know she wants her son to somehow survive this nomination, I got to tell you, it looks to me like your life's resume, as I like to call it, Pete, has just sunk your nomination ship. And honestly, if you'll really stop and think about it and be the person you expect everyone else to be, look in the mirror and realize this ain't nobody's fault but yours. Everybody hang in there and stay frosty.